Hello, everyone. While we're getting started, you could give a shout out to all of our fabulous panelists of hair and makeup team, stunt performers, stunt drivers, and even actors, Angelica Washington. Hello, my name is Jwaundace Candece. I'm an actor. Okay. Can you hear me? Can everyone hear me? Yes.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jwaundace Candece. I'm an actor, I'm a stunt woman, and I am the co-founder of StuntPOC. Welcome to For Women About Women. Now, before I introduce our fabulous panelists, I'm going to go over some housekeeping rules. You see the chat room over to the right. This is where you will find all of the, you could chat out, and all the information about our panelists will be over in that area, okay? And then the Q&A is for you to ask any particular question about our fabulous guests, okay? Okay, so let's get started. Let me introduce you with our first guest, Jes Harbeck from LA.
How you doing? Thank you, Jwaundace. Glad to be here.
Natascha Hopkins out of Los Angeles.
Hey guys, thank you for having me.
Then we have Jessica Bennett out of Atlanta.
Hey everyone, it's so glad to be here and be with all these amazing people.
And then we have Angelica Washington out of Los Angeles.
Hi, so excited to be here. Thank you for sharing your space with me.
And then we have Tracey Ruggiero out of New York.
Hi, everyone. Greetings from New York City.
Then we have Dee Bryant out of Los Angeles.
Hello, everyone.
Then we have Stevie Martin. She's with Makeup out of Atlanta.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining in.
We have Olivia Summers out of Los Angeles.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Michelle Lee out of Los Angeles.
Hi from LA.
Kat Schur with hair out of Atlanta.
Hey, guys.
And Joyce Gilliard out of Atlanta.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Okay, before we get started, the Q&A, we have topics that we'll discuss. We'll do hair and makeup first. We'll do the coordination. We'll do intimacy coordinator. We'll do AWD, and then we'll do stunt actors, and then everything else will fall in line. Okay, our first question is for hair and makeup team. What are some beauty tips or guidelines or any information that stunt performers and coordinators need to know upon being hired as a stunt double and a stunt performer? Who wants to take that first? Let's go with hair.
Well, as far as for the hair department, I find that when you come in to stunt double someone, know who you're doubling, first of all. Know exactly who you're doubling. So if you're doubling someone who has really short hair, know that we have to make your hair look just like that double if you have long hair. And another suggestion would be for me, for a double coming in, is to maybe have your hair prepped, because sometimes stunt performers don't like to hair to mess in their hair, because you know a lot of times a lot of people don't know what they're doing and their hair falls out, breaks off, or whatever the case may be. And if you have reservations about that, come with your hair prepped via braided down, molded, or in a ponytail or something to help us to help your hair too, and help us to get you out quicker.
Okay. Any other tips for that? Thank you, Joyce. Any other tips for that, Kat?
Yeah, don't be afraid to reach out, make a connection with your in hair. So with your hair department, especially if you have, say, something sewn in already. Sometimes the constraints that we have against wigs is that they aren't necessarily stretchy if they're a rental or a custom wig. So communication is about 95% of the problem that we run into.
That's
Okay.
right.
I have a question with that. What if there's someone who's very conscious of their hair? Like me, when I first started, you know, I have naturally curly hair, it was thick, and I was always getting my hair pressed and all, and was falling out. What do you suggest that we do?
Well, I would say I would come with my hair braided down, you know, because most of the times you're going to be wearing a wig anyway because you're doubling someone. So come with your hair already prepped and braided down so that we won't have to do anything but get your hair ready for the wig to put on.
Okay, let's talk about makeup. How important is prep for makeup, Stevie?
Prep is very important because a lot of times I'll piggyback off of what Joyce said and Kat, like making sure that you know who you're doubling or being, you know, a stunt double. Skin tone. Make sure you know if they're, you know, the skin tone of what you're doing, because that can pose an issue too as well, because then that will determine whether we have to at some point make you look closer to the actors, be a makeup, body makeup, face makeup. I will also say come with like a clean canvas, because you don't really know. So if you have nose rings or if you have nails, like it makes the process longer. So if you come with a blank canvas, it makes it easier for us, you know, to get you in and out, because sometimes you might not get the head of the department, you might not get the key, you might have, I might have to pull somebody from, you know, additional. And so I would also suggest that you bring your own makeup bag, or if they have tattoos, find out if they have tattoos, or if you have tattoos, you know, come with some makeup that you can, that you already feel comfortable, and maybe prep for us, like cover it, and then that way we can piggyback off of it. Also, I would say just make sure that you just have makeup period, because that way if you know how to do it, that way if you come prep knowing who you're doubling, it makes the time and the process easier, and it also makes you more comfortable, because it can be an uncomfortable situation if there's no communication. So I would suggest that you even reach out to makeup and hair if you can, to have a conversation, because sometimes we don't know until the last minute, and you guys don't know. So
okay, and that goes for men too. And this is probably for our coordinators too. How important is it for you to let the stunt doubles know what your actors look like? You know, is it important for you to let, you know, Tracey and Jes, is it important for you to let the stunt performers that you hire to double know what the actor looks like, or you just hire them for the job?
Trace, do you want to go?
I mean, first of all, as someone who's a performer as well, and was a performer for 15 years, it's also my job as a performer to know who I'm doubling and to do all the research, to try to, you know, look them up and see their latest pictures. So I like to be aware for myself as a performer. And as a coordinator, I mean, I'm trying to match up my double with the actor as close as possible. And a lot of times I will speak to and show hair and makeup, and often get their approval, and we work together doing that. So I don't know if necessarily then I have to go to the performer and you know, let them know who they're doubling. Like if I worked it out already with hair and makeup and we all approved this together. But as a performer, I think it's your job. I mean, knowledge is power. It's always great to go in and have all of the information, as much information as possible.
So Jes, my question to you then is, how important it is for you to hire someone who's the same, and this is for a Q&A, these days, how important it is for you to hire someone with the same skin tone, or does skill oversee any skin tone?
Well, look, I think first off, we're fighting some battles in the stunt community about that. And let's be really honest about what we're looking at, you know, within our community. Historically and stereotypically, there has been a process in which white people have painted themselves black or brown in order to double actors of color. And it's a practice that is despicable and not okay. And it's something that I will not partake in as a coordinator. So as a white stunt coordinator, I find it extremely important to make sure that I'm empowering and uplifting people of color on my set, because there is always someone out there that can do the job. And you'll see other stunt coordinators go search for some X Games kid if the actor is a white person. And if we don't have a white person in stunts that can do this certain trick, they'll go find someone from some community. But when it comes to performers of color, somehow they just can't do that. And it's not that hard. There's somebody out there for everyone. So every time someone gets painted down, it not only is oppression happening in real time, it's taking the job and the experience from someone that could be learning and growing in that moment. So it's of the utmost importance that we do this. And I think all of us need to step and call that stuff out when we see it.
Okay, I have a question. Something happened to Anjelika Washington, who's an actor currently on Stargirl. And Angelica, you want to kind of give what happened to you 3 years ago in 2017?
Yeah. So very similar to what Jes just kind of said. So very similar thing happened to me. I showed up to set one day. I'd already been filming multiple days. I did not know at all that I was going to have a stunt double. I had been doing my own stunts, I guess. We were just playing a game. So I'd been doing a lot of my own stunts. And so I had no idea that I was going to have a stunt double. And I showed up, and by the time I'd already checked in, was dressed, everything, no one told me anything. And I showed up to set, and there was a stunt double who was painted black. For me, I had never had a stunt double before, so I wasn't fully aware. I mean, I knew 100% what blackface was. So as soon as I saw it, I was like, is anyone gonna point out that she's in blackface? Like, are we just gonna not address that? So of course I spoke up for myself and I said something, and a producer kind of shot me down and made me feel very small, and really kind of just, yeah, really made me feel like my point was not valid. But the issue was, her excuse was, we couldn't find a black stunt double. There just aren't many black stunt doubles in LA, which we all know is lies.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
I'm a 5 foot black girl, like slim, like you could have found so many people. There are plenty available.
Well,
And
there's one
then,
right here, Dee Bryant.
Bryant.
There's one
Right.
on our show right now, Dee Bryant.
Exactly. And so even when I just Googled, which I literally did this yesterday, I was just telling you, Jwaundace, I was like, I literally Googled like stunt doubles of color, and like Stunt POC popped up. So what I've learned is it's literally the laziness of them not wanting to do it, period. And kind of like what she said, it's like, well, if it's someone who's white and can't do a skill, you'll go out of your way to find that specific person. But when it's a person of color, you just like, oh, I don't know, I couldn't find anyone. But like, you didn't try to look. And so it was really humiliating for me, that experience. And I'm aware now that this has happened to plenty of people, but it is absolutely a practice that cannot continue to happen. The history of film in general, you know, started with blackface when they never wanted to hire Black people to be a part of this industry. So the fact that we're continuing that this many years later, but now trying to cover it up is like, well, we couldn't find anyone. We didn't know what else to do. But like, you don't paint down black stunt doubles for white people. So if you don't do that for them, you shouldn't do that for us.
Now, I like what you said, and I guess my question is, what does hair and makeup have to do with this? You know, what can hair and makeup, Kat, you want to add your concern to this? Have you ever painted someone down, and how did it make you feel, and what happens?
I've been in situations, and sometimes we have control and sometimes we don't. I had a situation 5 years ago where they said, and it always happens, I feel like, to Black women more than anybody else, where I had a stunt coordinator come in and say, I can't find any Black ladies to double, you know, my actress, so I'm gonna have to have a guy, so I'll need a wig for him. And I said, no.
Yeah.
You don't always have that power, but I was able to say no. And when they was like, whoa, why? How dare you say no? It's like, well, her hair's in a snatched, you know, high pony with a bun. I can't wig that. And what he didn't know at the time is that that wasn't the hairstyle, but like, it's also not appropriate to do things like that when there are plenty of talented stunt women everywhere. It's just lazy sort of coordinating.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And Stevie, tell us about an experience you had recently on a show that was a predominantly Black show, and they said that, go ahead with your story on that.
Well, I actually have two.
Oh.
Yes. We on a particular TV show, Raising Dion. My actress, she was fair skinned, and the stunt coordinator was there from the beginning, so she knew. And so I had a brown skin stunt, and I literally had to make her light skin, which is very hard to do and very time consuming. But I'm very vocal about what I like, what I don't like, what I'm gonna do and what I'm not gonna do. I mean, I just stand behind what's right. And I felt like that wasn't right. I didn't know the protocols of she could get someone or she couldn't get anyone. I was looking at it at a situation where from makeup, if she's getting wet, if she gets wet and this stuff runs off, like that's my name. That's, that falls up under makeup. And so I went to the stunt coordinator, asked her, like, is there not anybody that you could have found that could look closer to her skin color? She said everybody was busy. So I don't know, that's not my world. So I'm taking her word for it. But I also went to the director and told the director that this right here, I'm not doing this again. Like, it takes too much time. You're waiting on hair and makeup. It's not us. This is what we have to do. I had to take fingernails off. I had to make her lighter than me. And it was crazy. And so then the director stepped in and had a conversation with her. And then the next time we had someone else. And then so on this previous movie that I did, which was an all Black cast, that one was all Black cast too. We had someone my complexion that was doubling someone brown skin. And I had to make her darker. And I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna do this. Like this keeps happening. Like, what is going on? And they were like, that's who we found, only later to understand that the stunt coordinator, she was related to him. So she wanted to make sure that she worked. And it took us like an hour to make her brown skin, when you can't just put makeup on someone and you have to do undertones, you have to make it look real because they're supposed to represent the actor. And it was just pulling teeth. And I really wish that I had, hair and makeup had a list of all the stunts and their information so that we could be like, no, I know this person is available. Oh no, actually I know her. And actually had a situation on another show, which Jwaundace knows. We had an actor who needed a stunt. They had a young lady, she was an African-American young lady, but she said she didn't feel comfortable because she wasn't that skin tone. And she said, I know someone who actually is her skin tone. And the stunt coordinator was like, yeah, no, like, we're not gonna use her. And so
what happens in situations like this, and this is for everyone to answer, and especially our coordinators in makeup, what can be done when there's resources out there, there are people out here who can double these people and they continue to say somebody's not available or we're not using them? Do we go to producers? What do we do, Tracey?
First of all, Angelica, I'm so sorry that happened to you. I'm glad it's bringing about this conversation. I'm really fortunate because I work on a show called Pose, and it's a show that prides itself on inclusivity. And that would never fly. I have to double people, and I come and I bring my choice to hair and makeup, and they're like, nope, that shade's not right. Show me someone else. Show me and I find people. So we all know there are people out there. Sometimes you have to dig a little deeper, but I think it's accountability, right? Hair and makeup holds me accountable. I hold, it's just the way we all have to hold each other accountable so that this does not happen. And there are plenty of talented people. Obviously, listen, safety is first, right? Safety is first, and we have to make sure everyone's going to be safe who's working on set. but there are plenty of talented people of color of all different shades where we can, we do the work and we find the people we need to hire so that everyone feels comfortable and that the right thing is done.
Thank you. That's really good. I was speaking with Angelica yesterday, Angelica, and we were talking about who needs to be held accountable for this. And we were thinking maybe the producers, like who do we go to or who do we voice our opinion to?
Well, hopefully it could get resolved between the stunt coordinator and hair and makeup. If I am not getting what I need, that's the next person you go to, right? And same thing with hair and makeup. That's who they would go then. If we can't be in agreement on something, then you take it to the first AD, and then you move up the ranks. But I just think that it's obvious that we have enough people to hire to get this right, and that does not need to happen.
Do you have any last minute suggestions, Angelica, on proactive things that you're doing right now?
Yeah, so as far as the whole thing that just happened to me that I've finally shared, of course, I have reached out, my lawyer has reached out to everyone as far as like the PGA, because I think that producers do need to be held accountable. I think that there has to be some type of policy in place, because actors, makeup artists, hair, like no one should fear that they could lose their job or be fired by speaking up in these types of situations, even stunt coordinators, of saying this is wrong. So I think the PGA absolutely has to hold themselves accountable. Of course, I think the makeup union, I think hair, I think wardrobe, I think everyone, because like things like this had to be checked off. Like by the time I walked to set and saw her there, she had been fitted for those clothes. She had gone through makeup. She had been wigged. The producers had already known about it. The stunt coordinator hired her. Like she had done her paperwork. Like there were so many checklists that had to happen before I even got there. So all of those people are going to be held accountable. So I have already been setting up things with SAG-AFTRA, with PGA, with the makeup union. And I was just telling Jwaundace, like, you let me know your list of demands and I will go advocate for it, because it's unacceptable. There are so many amazing, talented stunt performers of all colors, shapes, sizes, everything that can do amazing jobs. And it's just unexcusable to not hire them, especially when they deserve opportunities to grow and to build a resume like everyone else. So yeah,
I like that. And that goes to one of our Q&As that asks, with the issue of blackfacing and wigging, what can we individually do per department? Let's take a couple of people to like prevent this situation from happening in the future. Who wants to go first in hair and make, Joyce, what can we do? Like, do you ask the stunt coordinator, who's your double first? What can be the proper procedures for that to happen?
Unmute yourself, Joyce.
Yeah, I'm telling her. Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's what we normally do. We do ask the stunt coordinator who they have, and we ask for pictures. We want to see pictures before they even come to set. And if we see the picture and it's not what we think would work as far as for the hair department, we let them know this isn't going to work. So in a situation like hers, we would have been like, this isn't going to work at all. So, and most of the time the stunt coordinator will give us some slack and be like, well, this is all we can find. And I'm like, it's somebody out there. And we really push to make sure that we get what works best for hair and makeup. And sometimes we'll say it for makeup. Oh, and I already know the skin tone isn't going to work for makeup. Before they even get to the makeup department, because we work together in the trailer, hair and makeup. So sometimes makeup will see them first and they'll already tell them, this isn't going to work for hair. I can tell you that too. So, it's a team effort on our behalf to make sure that they know before we even put them through the works that it's not going to work for us.
Now, I personally don't have a problem with someone, because in the Black community, we come in so many different colors. Say someone's not available with the car stunt or with motorcycle and stuff. I personally don't have a problem with someone doubling as long as they're the same, race or skin tone and things of that nature. However, what I would like to see is that there is a procedure, a checklist of everyone doing their due diligence. Mm-hmm. Did you find like what ways and then some accountability for that? you know. So I thank you, and accountability is the key, Angelica, right? So I think we're going to hear more about this. We're going to hear more from Angelica Washington, and I really appreciate your bravery and your honesty and your openness to come out and do this, because I know when I first started in stunts, I was a bit shy when I was seeing it happen. I didn't know what to do. But now, of course, I created StuntPOC. This is, you know, there's got to be some type of accountability. So before we end and conclude with hair and makeup and Angelica, any last minute tips on what other things with, you know, coming to the set, what to prepare for hair and makeup? Who wants to go first?
Go ahead, Kat.
Joyce. Oh, Kat.
Oh, yeah. One thing I'd like to point out, which people don't actually realize very often, is when you're coming to set, know if you're shooting something contemporary or if you're shooting a period piece. So many times, especially people of color, have so many more limitations on them because of the wealth of beautiful hairstyles that we have in the world today. And when we are going back, you know, decades, we are up against sometimes more limitations. So if we need to wig you, even if you're an ND stunt in a period show, there's a lot more that goes into it. And so I just want to reiterate, make sure that you are able to reach out as a performer to your hair and makeup departments. And it'll be a good relationship that way.
And I had a question on that for Jes and Tracey. There's been times when a stunt coordinator do not want to reveal who the actor is that we're doubling. To me, it helps me because my hair, my natural hair is curly. Do I wear my hair curly? Do I wear straight? What's their skin tone? Do I need to kind of hang out in the sun a little bit longer because she may be browner, or I need to stay out the sun a little bit? So why is it that sometimes there are some coordinators who don't want to let us know or get us in contact with makeup way ahead of time so we could be prepared for that? Is it a mindset? Jes?
I have no idea why they would do that. I think that's strange and defeating the purpose of our job. The first thing I do is get a very, very up-to-date picture of the double I want to use and the actor, especially the actor, because a lot of times they want to give you their IMDb shot and they look very different from that. So it's incredibly important to get both photos, have them very up-to-date. I always send my double a picture of who they're doubling so they have an idea of what they're in for, and if they want to have their hair short or long, if that's something that needs to happen. I think that that's just weird and secretive, and it sounds a little bit like the old guard in stunts, maybe like the way things used to be, you know. And this is new. We're creating institutionalized change. We're fighting so many bigger issues here with what we're talking about, and I think the new generation, the new wave of stunt people, we operate differently.
Thank you so much. As you could see in the chat room, there's so many resources and contact information. Make sure you follow our hair and makeup team and Angelica Washington, because there is more to come for this. We will retrieve this hopefully in a few months where we can bring more hair and makeup and we'll have a resolution and accountability. And Angelica, we hope that you could continue this fight. Thank you for your bravery. And if there are any last minute things that you want to say before we excuse you guys.
No, just thank you so much for having me. And I'm just so grateful, even just what I've learned in the last week since I've shared my story. And yeah, I agree with everything which she just said. I mean, yeah, I feel like we are creating change. It's so much bigger than this. And it's opportunity as well. And it's a chance for this industry to really start to right their wrongs. And I plan 100% to hold them accountable to that. I think that's the number one key is accountability. Once we can acknowledge, and then we can move forward and we can do better now because we know better. And the only way that's going to happen is if we continue to put pressure on them and hold them accountable, which I plan to do so. So thank you for sharing your space with me, all of you. I really appreciate you.
We're going to excuse the hair and makeup team so we could get down to the business of stunts. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Make sure you follow them.
Thank you.
Okay, now y'all ready to get down to some dirty questions. Okay, so we're going to start with coordinating. As a female in stunt coordinating, how did that happen? And what are some challenges that you face? Who wants to take that, Jes and Tracey?
Go ahead, Jes, you could start.
Well, also being a queer person outwardly identifying as a queer person and looking like a queer person, I think sometimes there can be some challenges in the stunt community, which tends to be a bit more conservative on the whole. And you feel sometimes like you're the only person who believes what you believe or fights for what you're fighting for. But I have to say, lately, as the business is changing, I've been lucky enough to connect with some really great queer women directors that are doing amazing things. Not that I don't want to work for everyone, but it's just, there's something about working with people that you share similar bonds. And it's been incredibly uplifting. And it's allowed me to run my set in a way that is inclusive, because they're fighting for the same things that I'm fighting for. And we're not just trying to make art that changes the world, we're trying to change the world on our own set. And you can't make a piece of art that's trying to make the world better when oppression is happening on your own set. And I think something we were just speaking about before with who do we want to hold accountable in these situations, I do think getting word out to producers is one of the most important things. And it's something that I'm trying to do every day, because in Angelica's situation, it seems like that producer was either lying through her teeth or was completely bamboozled by that stunt coordinator who told her there were no Black stunt women. So she either believes that and is a fool for that, or she is, she's just been told, because again, the old guard has decided what stunts look like, who does them, and how they're done. So it's our chance right now to change the world, and we can do it together, but we have to remain a team, and we have to keep connecting like this in order to do it.
I like that. I really like that. Someone has a Q&A for coordinators. Question for coordinators. We anticipate that the traditional stunt hustle is going away. So what platforms would you use, or would performers use to hustle stunt coordinators?
My email is always available to people. So, in the age of, iPhones and YouTube, work on your skills, show them. If I know you already, keep in touch. Hustling is not a big thing we do in New York City anyway. We don't really kind of show up to sets and try to talk to coordinators. I think it's a little bit more of an LA thing, but listen, it's, everyone has everyone's email addresses and phone numbers. I wouldn't say text people out of the blue, but get in touch, send emails. That's always welcome for me.
I think so. Jessica, you had something to say, Jessica Bennett?
Yeah, so I've been a stunt performer for about a decade, and I went from Los Angeles to Atlanta, and the hustle game in Atlanta was super duper strong. But I think it's all about developing relationships. And I think it was something that Larnell said in the diversity panel. It's get out there and discover who you are as a performer and as an artist, and go and make stuff. And that's really difficult right now. Please, for the love of all that's good, stay safe. But I think there's an opportunity for us to just kind of show up on our own platforms. When I started 10 years ago, we didn't have Instagram. We didn't have those things. I was one of the first people on the availability list. That was useless back in the day. But now there's a lot of opportunity. So, as someone who over the years, I'm to the point where I'm assisting coordinators now and doing, I'm running short films as far as stunt coordinating goes. It's all about just getting your hands dirty and really getting in there and learning who you are, because it makes your hustle even more dynamic, because you can show up and be like, here's what I've got to offer, and I'm really stoked about it. And I don't want to speak for Tracey and Jes, but I want to work for people, kind of like what Jes was saying, that see something in me and I see something in them that makes it really exciting to get to work.
And it's a win-win to that, which leads to our next question by Elena Blair. It said, these days I've been lucky enough to work for stunt coordinators that I trust, but that hasn't always been the case. If we see something questionable happening on set, especially something that makes us feel uncomfortable, but may only be subtle racial or misogynist or just dangerous, and we don't trust the coordinator to respond appropriately, who should we talk to? What have you guys done with an experience like that? If you felt uncomfortable on set, what are some solutions to that?
I think it depends on the discomfort. Is it a safety issue where your life is in jeopardy? That's where you have to be able to speak to your coordinator, maybe pull them aside, even if you're a little bit worried about their opinion or how they're going to feel about you. Your life being in jeopardy that's another level of an issue. If it's sexual harassment, or if it's harassment based on your race or sexual orientation, and you don't feel comfortable because your coordinator may be someone who would partake if, in that type of behavior. Sometimes I think existence is resistance is something that I've tried to keep here in my heart. And the longer that people like us can stay in this business, the more it's going to change. So how can you take care of yourself in those moments by maybe speaking to an AD who could be a good ally, or even find the PA that you love, that has your back, talk to them and say, who can I speak to about this situation that's happening, so that you keep your job and you keep your position on set, because we've all seen it in our lives. We've all seen retaliation happen to people. We've seen amazing women get worked out of this business and blacklisted based on shitty behavior from the old guard. I think that their days are numbered and those times are changing, but there are more allies on those. And, hair and makeup and costumes have a lot of power, and those people are on our side. So there are lots of different people we can speak to within different departments to get the help we need.
I think that's a great answer. And that leads to intimacy coordination, because a lot of people go to them. So let's start with you, Jessica. Tell us, first of all, what is an intimacy coordinator?
So an intimacy coordinator is essentially a stunt coordinator for nudity and sex scenes. So we are there to read the scene, hear the dream of the director, and also have conversations with actors. We learn boundaries. We learn how are we going to take what this actor says yes to, what they say no to, and how do we meet it with the director's vision, right? And find that happy medium as far as storytelling goes. And then we work with every single department. We work with hair and makeup. We work with wardrobe. We work with props. We work with VFX. We work with everybody to see, is this indeed going to work for the greater vision? And then we also work with the legal department to make sure that the redlined nudity rider, because what is required by SAG-AFTRA right now is at the very, very bare minimum. And so part of the job as the intimacy coordinator is to make sure that that nudity rider, if we are allowed by production, and this is what we do for HBO, is that these are the nudity riders, the language is as specific as we can possibly get it, so that actor knows without a shadow of a doubt what they're going to show up and do on that day.
So when it comes to stunts, because a lot of women, we all have been in this position where we're in heels and short dresses and, almost nudity. Is there a need for an intimacy coordinator when it comes to stunts? Has that happened before, Tracey or Jessica or anyone? Have you ever been on a set and performed a stunt where you felt like an intimacy coordinator was needed? Anybody?
I have.
Good. Yeah.
I've been asked to do quite a few things naked and be in a burning building while naked, and also just being female and with a background in choreography. Before intimacy coordination was a formal thing, I was there for choreography for several rape scenes. So I feel that it's one of those, I worked on the run of Lovecraft Country, and I was shoulder to shoulder with Stephen Pope on several.
Oh, good.
Scenes.
I love Stephen.
Yes. And he was extremely, extremely supportive of this role. And a lot of times he would look to me as much as I would look to him for certain scenes. And for that show, very specifically, we had some very violent scenes of that nature. And I don't want to get too specific because we don't have trigger warnings or content warnings. But I think there's a really big need, because it's just another way to communicate. And I was on another movie, and especially being a stunt woman and also being an intimacy coordinator, y'all, I know how to make the tiniest pads imaginable. And
oh, good. We need that.
Oh yeah, I've got a treasure trove of things. And stick-on breast pads are super handy. And
I wish I would have known about intimacy coordinator, or wish it was around 10 years ago. I had to ride a motorcycle naked, and it was so hot in New Mexico that Natascha and Dee know about this, that I was like, I'm not wearing this nude, skin that they wanted, just do it. But by the time I rode the bike around the corner, the actor and I would just sit there naked. I feel like an intimacy coordinator would have been ahead of time, would have thought, especially with stunts, let's have someone on the other side. So when the scene cuts, they're not just standing there naked, you know, or standing there, you know. I think those are the things that people can think about as a stunt.
And that's something that I've had conversations with the AD department. For example, we had an intimate scene that got canceled for that day, and they were moving it, and the schedule was already adding on top of another very intimate scene. And these two actors were gonna have to do like 3 intimate scenes in a day. So I went to the AD department, I was like, hey, you've got 10,000 things on your plate. Just so you know, if you do move it to this day, that's gonna be a terrible day. It's gonna be really awful. And they go, oh, I haven't even looked yet. And I went, no, I know, but my whole job on this set is to look at that. And that's part of, just like a stunt coordinator is there to look at the stunts. So they're there to see the holes, right? We're there, and that's all part of being accountable for each other and lifting each other up on set. We're there as storytellers, and we just need to, we're all there to work together to get to the end goal. And yeah, it's not hard to have someone wardrobe, you know, with water and a robe for you.
And someone asked, is there requirements to be an intimacy coordinator? And I think Tammy, if you could note it in the chat room, and you guys look at it in the chat room, she'll give you a list of or get in touch with Jessica to look up that.
Yeah, just the really short answer, IDC Professionals is Intimacy Directors and Coordinators, formerly known as Intimacy Directors International, who I trained through. I've been training for some time. The role of coordinator is an extremely important and heavy role on set, and all their list of requirements is at idcprofessionals.com.
There you go. And then you can get in touch with her. Hey guys, as you know, we're going to continue this. Our next subject is to talk to Olivia and Dee to talk about the Association of Women Drivers. We're missing Angela Merrill. So Olivia and Dee, tell us how you got started and what made you start an all-female driving club association.
I'll let Olivia expound because she's actually the one she was the mastermind behind this.
Nice.
I think, well, first of all, it's years. I've been driving for a very long time. And, you know, I occasionally would hear, oh, there's not enough female drivers, or there's no female drivers. And then with productions, because I do a ton of commercials, I was coming out of a production company last year, and one of the producers said, oh, I had no idea there were female drivers. And it was just exhausting, I think I got at that point. So when I was walking in my car, I was just really upset and angry and sad. Like, you know, it was just a ton of emotions. But when I got in my car, because my dad passed away last year, and I always feel like he's like my biggest fan and like my angel. I turned the key and I heard him say, start a female driving team. And then I called Dee and Angela, because I always talk to them anyway with issues as a driver. If not that I have a lot, but if there was something that would come up. And they were like, yeah, I love it. And then this was in November. So it took a long time between finding the name. Dee was, you know, she got the logo, having the website built, talking to all my girlfriends are mainly commercial producers, casting directors, throwing, like, constantly sending them updates. And that was that.
So do you guys have any qualifications to be in the driving club? And is it mostly just commercials or film and TV?
There are qualifications, definitely.
And we could just go to the website if you want to look that up. Go to the website. Of course, you probably need to do some good driving yourself on here. Yeah. And it leads to a question, maybe Dee, you could answer this. This is a question from one of our Danielle Golden. To what caliber are stunt coordinators looking for when it comes to female stunt drivers and motorcyclists? Too often they are qualified riders and drivers, yet some coordinators think that females are underqualified. I think that happens to Dee and I a lot.
All the time. Basically, there's a difference between being a motorcyclist, even a professional road racer, and being a stunt woman motorcyclist. Because as a stunt woman, you ladies know that you have to know what to expect on set. And stunt coordinators are always saying, can you give me a little more? Can you give me a little more speed? Go a little faster. And as a road racer, you wouldn't necessarily know how to handle something like that. The pressure is different. So as Jess explained, sometimes stunt coordinators will go outside of our community to find someone who they think is qualified, grab them off of a road racing track, and throw them into stunts, and they don't know what they're doing. So I would just say, to be considered as a driver or a motorcyclist, as a stunt woman, you have to be just very competent and very mutable and know what to expect in certain situations. I've had to lay a bike down when I wasn't supposed to, just to avoid a situation where an Indy car came out of nowhere. So just things like that. Just be prepared for the unknown.
And you always have to know, I know also riding a bike, you have to look 500 yards ahead, whereas in a car, because you got to know if debris is in the road, what's ahead of you. You got to be able to do
your
that.
head is on a swivel, definitely.
Yeah. To learn more about AW, Association of Women Drivers, what is your website? She'll put it over in the chat room, and you guys can email them for more information. We're going to go to our last topic, and then we'll open it up for a Q&A to be open for anybody, which is our stunt actors, which are Natascha Hopkins and Michelle Lee. Tell us the difference between being a stunt performer and being a stunt actor. Is there a difference? Michelle.
Well, I would say there's not a huge difference, because part of being a stunt performer is acting. There's a lot of understanding how the actor wants to be portrayed, how the actor's quirks are. If he doesn't have your goofy walk, don't walk goofy. There's a lot of acting in stunt performing, which I think bleeds over to being a stunt actor. And then now if you want to add in dialogue, that's a whole different story,
That's when the stunt acting comes in, I think. I think that's when the stunt acting comes in. Natascha?
Right.
Natascha?
Yeah, I definitely would agree with Michelle, because especially when you have a bond with your actress and you have the quirks and all that, you're molding yourself to be them and to be, believable on camera. But when you are your own stunt actress, it is kind of cool, because you're like, oh, I could actually do my nails the way I want to do them, or whatever the character is. And I think it's great too, because you're able to perform and it doesn't just stop. You know what I mean? Like it's like the whole scene.
You get to go through the whole scene without switching out.
Right. So
I prefer that lately too. I prefer playing myself, because I feel like there's so much pressure to be a stunt double nowadays, with the actors, so Michelle, talk about your background as also an actor, and you have a huge movie coming up, Black Widow. What are some stunts that you'll be doing in that? And also the acting aspect of it, the performer aspect. Without giving it away, of course.
Oh God, I can't say anything, but I started off as an actor when I was 6. I grew up in LA, so I've always had acting in my background, and then I became a martial artist, and then I became a stunt performer. So it's all inclusive for me. And Black Widow is coming up. It got pushed back. I'm so bummed, but it's I get a fun little role in it. It's fun. It's fun to be in a dynamic scene, doing action, doing stuff like that in a huge movie like that. I also have a TV show. I booked a series regular on a CBS TV show. It also got pushed back. So there's a lot of things, hanging out, waiting to come out.
So make sure you just keep following, if you're in the chat room, follow Michelle Lee so you can keep up with her budding acting career. And Natascha Hopkins, you listed that you're a former stunt woman. Why is that? And what are you doing now?
Yes, so a former, because, it's hard, right? Because you want to retire and you want to do other things, and then you get a call and you're like, oh, this is so cool, or this actress or this coordinator or whatever. So it's been really difficult. It's probably been 4 years now. But my last stunt job was on Black Lightning, the first season, and it was the first time ever the line producer was like, are you sure you're not coming back? And then I had an idea like 4 years ago. I have 2 female producing partners, and now that we were able to partner with Genius Production, which is Marseille Martin's production company, and we have a deal with the studio now. So it's been really difficult though, because you miss the, the team on set, you miss the adrenaline rush. But, I guess when you make the choice and it kind of comes into fruition, then you're like, okay, this is the right step for now. And being able to push stunts on a producing end would be really exciting as well.
I want to see that's really, I want to see that's really bold of her, which I give her kudos for, to say that I'm going to retire, which is hard because it's a source of income. She is such a phenomenal, stunt performer and talented, and she's high in demand, and she's gorgeous. Like, Natascha works a ton, and to kind of say, I'm done, right? I'm done, which is huge for her to take a pivot and a path to doing something else. And it shows, because she's successful in this other thing that she's doing. So kudos to you.
You know what? I feel like sometimes I'm kind of close to that. I have conversations with Dee with things that happen on the set as a female, as, a Black woman, as, all of these things I want to be done at times. But this is my passion, to be a stunt woman. And I love also acting. Then I meet coordinators who are amazing, like you two, and even the men there, Doug Coleman and Tom Williams and Lionel, all the ones I had on my panel last time, that give me hope of, of staying in the game and representing. Let's talk about women in wages. Do you feel that women, there are times where I've worn heels and short dresses, and I had to do stunts where I couldn't pad up. And then I go to sign out and the guys are doing the same thing and they get $300 more. Has that happened to you guys? Like, what happens when that happens? I almost want to be like, I want them to put on a short skirt and a dress and not wear pads and see how that feels. How do we approach the coordinators about that? I don't know. Is that an issue? Has that ever happened to you? Everybody's like quiet, like, yeah.
I'll say for sure.
Michelle?
For sure. I'll say for sure, guys get much higher stunt adjustments. And it's hard to say, hey, well, I deserve this too. It's a hard thing to bring up.
Yeah. I remember when I started that it was like kind of a cool thing to be the only stunt woman amongst a bunch of guys on set, which I think is ridiculous, because I want to be around a bunch of awesome stunt women. Like, it's not cool to just be the only one. Let's all do this together. And I think also, not only do men get higher adjustments and paid better for shit that we're doing in heels, they get longer runs. Someone doesn't hire their wife 100%. To do your job the whole time. You come in, do the one thing that's hard, fall down, then they put their wife back in to do the rest of the job. That happens to us all the time. Then they get on rigging teams, they get on safety teams, they get on, they do drive, everything.
Jessica's gone crazy.
Yeah. The men in our business get the benefit of the doubt. They get that kid could be a good rigger. Let's give him a shot. I've never seen someone do that to a woman. So that's why I love what y'all are doing with the driving team. Sorry, I'm talking too much, but I've been having my coffee from the Dark Lord here.
No, and that's good.
That is true. I just want to give some props out. I just want to give props to the new
generation
of male coordinators who do, really understand what we go through, and they are giving the proper adjustments. Of course, as a female coordinator, whenever I have a show, I'm always obviously try to work for women, but
especially on pose.
but this new generation of male coordinators are really aware, and I really feel like they're trying to do their job with recognizing how what women have had to do.
Yeah.
And I think so too. I think it's changing the old mindset of things. There are people who've been in the business a long time who still have the same mindset. Then there are people who I feel that are, up and coming, like the ones I named, and Justin Raymond and George Cottle, who are open to, women and women of color and just POC in general, who are, I feel like, could be a good role model for the role models to come. So let's go to our Q&A section. When someone asks, how challenging is it to transition from stunt performer to coordinator? And did you face any hassle about other coordinators better be from the good old boys club? Okay, who wants to take that?
I've been talking a lot, but I'll go.
Okay, go. Yes, go.
Yeah, I knew it was something I wanted to do early on, because not only do I love the feeling of like going from player to coach, because that's how I would kind of describe it, and getting to create your own team and make your own environment what you want it to be. But I like creating action. It's so fun. That's part of the process, right? And so I started doing really small stuff like earlier in my career, and I got a lot of shit for it from some of the older guys. Like, how dare you think that that's something you can do? Again, like what Tracey said, things are changing, but when I started, that's not how things were. So I was afraid, and it took me a long time to develop my inner voice and confidence and even start calling myself a coordinator when there's 25-year-old sons of people second unit directing shows right now that
Right,
have,
exactly.
how much experience do they really have? They're learning on the job just like I was, but because I wasn't someone's family or in like that, it wasn't seen as okay. So I would just throw it out there to all the young women and all people of color, queers, all of us that feel different, to just go for it in a safe and smart manner. Have a mentor that you can always speak to, know who you're hiring, do it right, but start on small things and learn now. Because you really, like in stunts, you only learn by doing.
Right.
It's a really important process.
Yeah.
I like that. I know when I first started, Dee was my mentor. And I know when you first started, Dee, when you come from a background of already driving these huge machines and you driving these cars and motorcycles. And I remember wanting to be, you were my inspiration, and you mentored me and took me in. So what were some of the challenges you faced coming into the game, being a badass chick on a bike in cars, Dee? What did you face?
I still face, I'm still doubted. I don't know if you all know that the Batwoman character was recently recast, the DC or Marvel DC, whichever one, was recently recast with an African-American actress. And now Canada's going crazy trying to find an African-American who can ride a Ducati as well as drive cars well.
And drive and crash cars. Mm-hmm.
So as far as I'm concerned, there's only two of us in the business that fit that profile, and it's Jwaundace and I.
And they reached out to both of us. And they're bouncing back and forth as we need more footage and more footage. I mean, how much?
And I have over 20 years in the stunt game, and I'm still being doubted. So this is still a challenge for me. And from day one, people have doubted me. I mean, I operate heavy equipment that I used to, just to pass time when I was a crane operator, I would slide these machines and race the guys just to see how many loads we could get before lunch.
Do you still doing that? So yeah, go ahead.
I mean, I still bounce between stunt jobs. So it's just funny when a guy looks at me, a stunt coordinator, looks at me and says, or asks me, are you sure you can operate this? And it's just, would he ask a white male the same question? No. So it's, you know, it's still a challenge. It's always going to be a fight, I'm sure, until I retire. Like Tasha.
Yeah. I know. Till you say former stunt woman.
Former stunt.
Here's a question for Olivia. Do you see more doors opening for women to get indie roles? There was an article about Canada that's training more women drivers, and it makes me worry less about job opportunities for American women. Interesting.
I'm not 100% sure of the question. So what is the question?
I think she's asking, do you see more jobs for drivers, not indie, but indie driving?
Oh, and
because Canada, I don't know if you know, Canada has started a driving school to teach women how to drive. So yeah, is it best?
I'm Canadian, so I'm dual citizen. So
yeah,
just I think us Canadians are super quiet. So everybody just hears about everything later. And we're like, no, we've been doing it for a while. I'm hoping for more ND driving. I'm always in the hot seat. So I have done plenty of shows where I turn around and then the entire ND group behind me is all guys. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know LAPD didn't have female officers. Why isn't there a woman behind me in a car?
Right.
And a lot of times too, I have to say, like, all the coordinators that have hired me for the most part are really good about that. I am seeing more and more, like, I mean, not to drop names, but Melosi Leonard is probably the #1 guy for having just a mix in his ND, you know, at least as far as driving is concerned, of women, men.
Has a diverse.
Yeah, a whole diversity thing going on. So, again, it also, I feel like I've had a lot of women reach out to me since Association of Women Drivers, and that the one thing that I have to say, and you can't do it enough, is you have to train.
Yeah.
You know, one weekend class is not going to make you a stunt driver. And it's the same thing like if when I was a ballet dancer, I didn't take one weekend of ballet classes and decide to audition for New York City Ballet or Alvin Ailey or something like that. You have to train just like anything else. So just keep training.
Are there places to train in LA for motorcycles and cars? Because it's really hard here in Atlanta, especially for bikes, you know, so is there any places to keep training without paying $3,000 a pop every time?
Willow Springs, you can, you know, I mean, it's unfortunate. That's the one thing with driving. It is expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, I have my own drift car. You have to, again, it's just costly. But Willow Springs has, there's what's his name? Naoki has a drift school. You can go daily. You can work on things there. Rick Seaman, you can pay, you know, hourly.
You could pay hourly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So another person asks, what careers did you have before performing stunts? Did anybody have it? Well, Dee talked about hers. Go.
Heavy equipment operator.
What was it, Dee?
Mine is a heavy equipment operator.
Okay. And Jessica?
I've had 10,000 jobs. I've been a stunt performer since I left college, but one of the biggest things I'm so proud to be sitting on this panel right now is every single person on here is multi-hyphenated. And if you want a long career in any of this, go get your hyphens.
Mm-hmm.
Like, go get your hyphens. Like, right now, my family needs to keep the lights on. I'm gonna go work back on the ambulance. I did that after being 6 years as a performer. You know, I wanted to help people, so I went and got a license. Yeah. So, like, it's one of those things. It's like, find where your heart lies and go get it. So, I mean, I've been an advanced EMT. I've worked on 911. I have been a standardized patient. I don't know, but it's all of those things have led me to be an intimacy coordinator. All of it.
I feel like all of those things makes you a more rounded person. Yeah. And as a more rounded person, you bring what you have to the table in any given, you know, job. So it just adds to the, you know, wonderfulness that is you.
Yeah. And I think too, I found that as I get older, you know, I'm not fighting as much, you know, or hitting the ground as much. So I train more with driving and ride motorcycles. So you kind of got to switch skills too and become multifaceted when it becomes to stunts too. You kind of got to know, and I love fires. I love being set on fire, you know, things of that nature. And also acting. Tasha, why do you think, is it important for stunt actors to take acting class? Do stunt actors have representation like actors?
I would think absolutely, because it won't hurt to take acting class. And there's so many of them, and you can even do it virtually now. And also, I think just to be able to take direction from the director, you know, is good. So working with an actor and an acting coach helps that as well. A lot of stunt actresses like Michelle, all of us really, with Jwaundace too, we all have just regular agents for acting. So even if it's a stunt acting role, but a lot of times, a lot of the roles that I've gotten were from stunt coordinators who knew that I acted. So they were able to contact me directly, and then I would go read, and then I would email my agent the information.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Here's one from, Tracey, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that especially in up and coming stunt performers, everyone should take a basic acting class, an on-camera class, and understand how camera works. And you know how you play to camera and things like that. So it should definitely be just another tool in your belt for sure.
Yeah.
I totally agree. The next one is probably for our car people, Dee and Olivia. Do you have a recommendation for your first car to train with?
I would say Crown Vic. That's my preference.
And why do you like that? I like that too, Dee. Why do you like it? Why do you think?
They're rear wheel drive, and you can just whip them around really easily. And they're easy to train with. And my thing is, invest in your career. You know, it's like Olivia said, it's expensive, But if it's something you really want to do, you will save up your money and invest in a car, buy a car, because it gets expensive renting and going to these classes. So purchase a vehicle instead of spending another $3,000 on a course like Rick Siemens. I mean, I do think that everyone should take Rick Siemens first, but afterward, put that $3,000 into your own car, go in together with another stunt buddy, purchase your own car and hit the track when you can. That's investing in your career.
I totally agree. The next one, what platforms do you use to research performers? This is probably for the coordinators. There are paid and non-paid options for it to be seen. So what platforms do you use?
Trace.
Yes.
Trace?
All of the main online ones. I mean, in New York, we have ones that are a little bit more geared to our performers here, but I'll search all of them, really. So be on them, have everything updated and be on them. Yeah.
Yeah. And we all call our friends too. That's the part of the networking. I think, was it you, Jess, that was talking about the relationships aspect of this, you know, like I'll call any one of these ladies if I have a question about someone to hire, any one of them. And that's kind of where your friendships and the circles that you train within are very important. You know, it's not an individual sport. We're a team sport situation, and you got to have buddies to keep pushing you.
And it's your job to cultivate those relationships. It really is. And because coordinators, I like to hire, I mean, listen, I want to give everyone a shot, but I like to hire a lot of the same people because I know they're going to do a good job for me.
You know, your good job.
Yeah.
I like that. The next one is a good one because is joining stunt women's or in some female association required to be known as a female stunt performer? If not, are there requirements to be considered a female stunt performer if you're starting out with no credits? So I think her question is it a requirement to be in a female association like USA Stunt Women's Association V10 to be known as a stunt performer?
Not at all.
Absolutely not.
Like
yeah.
how what is the weight on that? I guess that's what they're asking.
I mean, I've never been in one. I prefer really like not to. I've never found it necessary for me, but you know, it's just really whatever works for you. In a way, it's kind of like being in a sorority. I don't know, Jess, you might be able to speak to this better than
Michelle,
me.
Michelle, I actually just left my association, but I would see it maybe as the driving group that these two have created. Absolutely. It's a little more important, right? Like, I guess with, you know, the systemic things we're going through as women in this business, it helps. It's like Stunt POC, but with the groups, they are a little bit more like sorority, fraternal, try to hire within and help each other kind of thing. And I guess, Michelle, how do you feel about it since you're in a group still and, you know?
I think it's something that you can, it's also one thing I wanted to note that it's not something that you just go, hey, I want to be in a women's group, let me join. There's a rigorous, I feel like they don't just accept anyone, right? Am I right?
No, you have to be invited. They have to.
You have to be invited or referred.
Yeah.
Or referred, and they generally, I don't think, invite newer people that don't have an established credit. They invite people that are, I feel like, established, some great skills, some good onset rapport, and all that stuff. So I think if you're starting out new, that's not, I mean, I feel like it's hard to get there in the first place. If that's something you want to do at the, you know, further down your career, you can if you want to. And it's just like a group of women that support each other. And then you have like a group of women that you feel confident on speaking to about certain issues that you might not want to talk to someone else about, being confident that these women will, you know, help you and support you. And so, I mean, that's just one aspect of joining the group. And if you don't feel like that you need that or that works for you, then I don't think it's necessary at all. Like Tracy said, it's just,
I don't think people hold it against you if you are or not. And obviously there might be some, you know, weight to it. If you get accepted to a group, that does mean, like Michelle said, you have the proper skill. And as for Olivia and Dee's group, I mean, that's spectacular for something that's such a special skill. And we know exactly where to go to hire amazing female drivers. I mean, that is so I mean, we're really lucky that these women are creating that kind of group.
Yeah, I'm so proud of Dee, Angela, and Olivia for, you know, the bravery of even starting an all-female driving group, you know. And that leads to my next personal question. What is, have you, which also correlates with Sarah asking, open to all panelists, have you ever been told that it's better to be quiet than to speak up? And if you do, it'll ruin your reputation or job prospects if you speak up on something that was uncomfortable on set. Has that ever happened to you?
There's a culture of silence in stunts, and it's real.
I told a guy off one time that couldn't hit his mark behind me, kept blaming me to the director. And the director came up to me at one point and said, we see what's going on, Olivia, don't worry, you're not going home, because I was the only female. And I said, please don't say anything. I just want to get through this day. And like 6 hours later, I just kind of gave up. I was just over it. And even though like everybody was staring at me and he said, you know, just so you know, I'd never hire you. I just walked right back up to him and I went like this, just so you know, I would never effing work for you. In fact,
I love that.
Now under special skills, it's going to say will not work with And then, so I was just done because you know, as a female driver, especially everybody's I mean, just a female in general, everybody's kind of waiting for you to screw up, I'm sure. Or the guys say that to me too, but a driver definitely. So I just felt at that moment, I had nothing to lose. I'm the only girl and I'm hitting my mark. He's not. He's just off and now he's blaming me. So I spoke up. And that the next day I was still there and he wasn't.
Oh, good. So that worked in your favor that time.
Yeah. I mean,
Jessica?
I think I'm selective on what I say. I see stuff and, you know, sometimes I'm just like, oh, I'm just going to fly under the radar on this one.
Oh, good. Jessica, you had something to say?
Yeah, so my specialty that got me into stunts is I was a Grand Prix horseback rider, and I ride a lot on set, and I find myself often as the only female on a riding team, and a lot of wranglers are men and want their daughters to ride, and we're often thrown under the bus for a horse. You know, I got yelled at because somebody's swimming horse didn't want to swim, and I was like, because they don't swim. You didn't train them to do that.
Right. Oh my God.
But I think it's really difficult. It's kind of something Jes was saying earlier, is that we have this systemic oppression. And for women, a lot of times we are fighting for one opportunity in the midst of 20, and we probably aren't going to get to work on the run, and we're not going to get to do these things. And so it is terrifying to speak up. And so I think now we're getting into an age where we're banding together better and better and better, because we're realizing, oh my God, it wasn't just me. And there's more of us. And I think there's power in numbers and opportunities. And now I have so few females I've worked for on my resume, but I feel always, it's sometimes even harder because they're under a lot of pressure. As if I feel like y'all as coordinators, there's a lot of pressure, because they're looking for us to mess up. And that sucks. So I think it's just in general, you know, it's hard to speak up. And, you know, I think of Anjelika's position with that double walking in. I can't imagine. I cannot imagine what that double face walking on set. I mean,
how uncomfortable was it for, well, I guess it wasn't uncomfortable for the stunt performer who got painted down. I guess, you know, she was okay with it, but.
You know, I don't know. I can't speak for that person. Because maybe that person was too scared to speak up. And I again, that could not be the case. This person could have been like, sure, whatever, that's fine, which isn't okay. But speaking as someone who's been really scared to speak up, I just think it's just in general, as people who present as female, that it's just really hard. And I think that we've got a lot of change to happen for this, for it to get easier to speak up. And it's hard. It's just really freaking hard.
Now, have any one of you ever been in an uncomfortable situation and you had to go to your trailer to think about, you know, how do you handle it? Or did you get out of a situation that you felt uncomfortable? Can you speak on any of your uncomfortabilities and how you handled it? Appropriately or inappropriately?
I actually worked on a show, which was the #1 Fox show last year, where I worked for a coordinator, stunt coordinator, who's known as the nicest stunt coordinator in the business. And I respect this man, love him, but then I witnessed him do something that was just, to me, I thought was out of character. But like Jes said, it's the old guard. It's what he's used to doing. It was like so matter of fact.
Wow.
He threw on a wig to double a little Latino actor driving a big rig. And all I could think about was, I can drive a big rig. Why can't I put on the wig and double this Latino? I'm half Latina. So, and you know, I had to really fight myself not to say something to the stunt coordinator and fight myself to say something to him. So I ended up, until this day, I'm still ashamed that I never brought it to his attention. How
uncomfortable that made you feel?
Uncomfortable and disappointed in him. Because
Dee, don't you think it goes back to that existence is resistance, like that we're kind of constantly negotiating as people when that happens to us, right?
Absolutely.
It's like, is your presence on that show, you know, versus you said, when is it important? And that's something I think we all deal with when that type of, it's different. I'm a white person, but I've had men be wigged for my characters.
Yes.
And it's like, you can't call SAGs, they're not going to do shit. You can't say something to your boss because you're not going to come back. And this is the stuff this happened to me like 2 years ago. It's not just in the past. This is happening all the time. It just happened to Dee last year. It's like, how do we change it when the people who have the power and who have the ears to the producer are the ones committing these atrocities?
Absolutely.
Do you guys have any allies, men especially? Do you have any male coordinators that you could go to and maybe discuss some things with, that, I have a couple that I can name, but would I feel comfortable going to them? I don't know, because, am I gonna look like, that I can't handle myself? I mean, I did speak with one the other day, Tom Williams, about a situation that happened with me on set earlier this year, so I felt comfortable talking to him because he knows my ability and, know what I could do. And it was an asshole situation of what happened. I think, Dee, because I came to your house crying after that happened. Thank you for the wine. But I'm just wondering, like, what do we as women, or not just women, but just people, stunt performers, we're not going to be perfect every time, and especially as women. Sometimes I have a lot of bad days. Sometimes I have more great days, thankfully. That's why I'm still working. But there are days where I just maybe can't hit my mark, or I can't, it's just a bad day. What can we do to get out of an uncomfortable situation? Or what have you done that's worked? Did you stop the scene and say, hey, let me get 5 minutes, or, did you take a deep breath, or did you have a conversation with the coordinator before a stunt and say, hey, I'm not comfortable with the rigger who's got me on the wire, when this happened in rehearsal? What can we do, or what's the safe way for women or just any stunt performer to do when they feel uncomfortable before a stunt?
You have to communicate. You have to communicate. I mean, and you're your own advocate. Like, you have to speak up for yourself. All of that, like, and you also can't be afraid of losing a job, because you wouldn't want to work for that person anyway if you're going to lose your job over speaking up for yourself.
Exactly.
All of this needs to be done with etiquette and respectfully, right? You're a guest on a show, you're hired by someone. But if you're not going to speak up for yourself, no one, who is going to, right? Obviously, you're trusting your coordinator. That's our job as a coordinator, to keep everybody safe and to keep everyone happy and make sure everyone's able to do their best work. But as a performer, I always speak up for myself. And honestly, it's been rare occasions that that I felt that, it wasn't accepted. And but also, I'm at a point in my career where I'm only going to work for people I like and who I trust. So
exactly. Natascha, you have something to say?
Speak up for yourself and you be respectful.
I was going to say, on the point of speaking up for yourself, there was a situation that had happened like years and years ago, and it was a TV show. And then it was the end of the day. They're like, hey, can you change your wardrobe? This is another episode. I'm like, oh, well, where's the contract? And the coordinator was like, can you just do this as a favor? No, if it's a different episode, this is a different wardrobe. I don't understand why I wouldn't. It doesn't matter how big the stunt. I mean, I was just running through the woods and going in mud and all that, but I was like, it doesn't matter. So I stood up for myself. The contract was in the trailer. And then about a month or two later, a friend of mine was like, what did you do on that set? That coordinator said that you were a diva and you did this and you did. I was like, that's really interesting. And then a couple of years later, he ends up calling me on your show, Dee, whenever you weren't available. Then I was back. But it was always still a little weird. But I'm like, I'm still, if I was newer in the industry, I would be scared of not getting the job or making him upset or the production upset. Like, who is this girl wanting another contract? No, it's another episode. You probably wouldn't have a problem paying somebody else.
And when men advocate for themselves, they're seen as strong and powerful. And it's these similar dynamics that we see that are happening in the world right now. They're happening within stunts. And one of my best friends is also a non-binary stunt performer. And they were recently on a show. And one of the riggers refused to use the proper pronouns for them and the actor they were doubling, who was also non-binary, and made kind of a big deal about it and was really not like, made them feel unsafe. And then he's the person on their line when they're doing this climbing scene. So how do you negotiate things like that, right? As a woman, a non-binary person, a person of color, when literally the person who's in charge of your safety, if you speak up to them, what could happen? This is problematic stuff that there are times when we can speak up, and then there are times where not only is our livelihood on the line in the future, but our safety in that moment. And that's the part that, like, I don't know how to answer that question yet, but I think the more of us that get into positions of power, like, I want to work for all of you, I feel safe with all of you, those are the sets I want to be on, not these guys that won't use they, them because they think it's gross.
And I think that's where I am in my career now. I don't want to work for people where I don't feel safe with, or that, I know that, I just don't want to do that anymore. You know what I mean? Right. But to offer people advice who's new, someone that's coming up, don't be afraid to speak, because you're going to have regrets. I mean, I did a car hit a few years ago, and the stunt adjustment was adjustment was, disrespectful is all I can say. You know what I mean? And I didn't know how to approach him. I went and I just left the set. But for stunts like that, like car hits, motorcycles crashing, I'm okay with asking, what is the budget on this? What is the stunt adjustment on this? Or what exactly is going to happen? Or who's the driver? Who am I riding with? Because if I don't trust the driver, that's following me, or I'm chasing, who I don't feel safe with, then I probably can't ride parallel to him. Or, who's the stunt coordinator? I got to know all the logistics now, especially with motorcycle and car stunts. Right. That's just me. But it took 15 years to be able to get to the point where I could speak up, so hopefully with the new people, I encourage you, speak up early so you could avoid those situations later.
For the people who want to drive, especially, you have to speak up. If you're not going to speak up, just find another skill in stunts, because there's so many times, and I have to say, maybe I'm lucky. I love all the guys I work for, but they'll always say, you ask a lot of questions, because, and they make a joke of it, because I'm constantly, okay, so if my car's here, but whatever it may be, you need to, if you just even have a little bit of you that's not sure, you could kill somebody with that car. There's so many times I abort. I'll get on the radio just as I'm coming in to do a T-boning. I'm like, abort, because I know that the timing is off on the T-boning and I could send the car in the wrong direction.
Right.
So you have to be vocal, new or not. And even one of the guys that got me started in driving said, if you're not ready, say you're not ready. And I don't care if it's your first job ever. And the first, I got in the car, I set up my mirrors, everything. And they were like, okay, Olivia, and you're ready. And they were going, I'm like, no, I'm not ready. Like, you wait on me.
That happened to me on MacGyver. Daniel Hargrave called me to do a T-bone to a car. And so many of the guys, I was the only girl, and I'm sure this happens to you a lot, giving you cues, when to go, when to take off, when to, your mark. And, the first two times I was, not in my head. I had to pull Daniel to the side and say, Daniel, let me take my own cue. Just trust me, because I couldn't focus on with 50 guys telling me what to do and when to go. So the moment I spoke up and I said, Daniel, let me go my cue. He hired me for driving before, and I hit the car exactly where I wanted. I had to get in my own zone for that. So I encourage all the women, especially like you said, Olivia and Dee, with cars, with motorcycles, you have to trust your own instinct behind a car. You can't, somebody can't tell you how to do something. Jessica, you had something to say?
Yeah, I think you're so right. And when we're talking about specialty work, again, going into horse work, I'm like, no, please don't see a cue into the walkie because this horse knows exactly what you're saying. However, there is a huge privilege in saying I'm going to work who I work for. That is privilege, y'all. And we can't, like, I'm sorry, I'm just like suddenly super mad. We can't say, we cannot say, because I'm in a position in my career where I really need my insurance. And I have worked for people who've broken my arms and broken my bones. But my 4-month-old has insurance.
Yeah, exactly.
And we can't, it is not okay. It's not that simple. And it's not that simple. And, and someone who's trying to get skills and grow and really be a leader in this, it's really difficult to get into mentorships and to stand up for yourself because you're going to be called the diva.
Yeah, exactly.
And that sticks with you for a really long time. And I
it
think
happens to women.
It happens to women all the time.
Women of color, especially.
Oh,
how often
especially.
do all of you women of color on this panel feel that
I'm going to be a diva for the next 10 years. And me, Dee, Tasha, we're going to have to bring back. Tasha can decide what job she wants.
Yep.
Okay, Tasha, you got a question?
I was going to say really quickly, which I just realized this. For me to retire, remember, I was a gymnast. So a lot of my jobs was crashing concrete in a dress, on the wall, air rounds. It was wire work. So I think for me, it was really different. It's very different than driving. So for the newer stunt performers, really that driving gives you longevity, or even martial artists like Michelle, incorporating it into her acting, and also being able to fight, because just because you're fighting does not mean that you're always crashing.
Yeah.
So
fighting, I mean, I was a wrestler and fighting, my body hurt. So that's why let me go to driving. Let me not. Let's our last question, and then we'll wrap it up, is at what point does a stunt merit an adjustment? Have you ever done any stunts without an adjustment, or that deserved an adjustment? Or
people walk on set, I'll give them a couple $100. I mean, come on. That's how I think everyone should get something for being there. Right?
Oh, well, you're nice for doing that, because I've been on a lot of sets where, know, and also it depends on, for me, it depends on the stunt. If a coordinator call me and he likes me and I'm out in less than 8 hours, I feel like, and it's an easy something, walking, Rondell called me and I just had to stand there while a car crashed and watch it. I felt like I was safety, and I was only there 4 hours. And I was like, thank you, Rondell, okay. I didn't even expect it. So it also depends for me, what it is and things of that nature. Let's wrap up with any last minute recommendations for new and up and coming, motivations for new and up and coming stunt performers, or for women, however you want to end it in 30 seconds or less. Let's wrap this up. And who wants to start?
I would say just train, like Tracey was saying, train and record your skills. I mean, there are people out there that are saying they're black belts and they're martial artists, this and that, and they have no reel. So train, and prove yourself, prove your skill.
Good.
Yeah, piggybacking on that, have the skills you say you have, know how to take direction, and set etiquette is huge. Be respectful, be helpful, be someone people want to be around. Oftentimes, there are a lot of the things you're hired for, almost anyone can do, right? And if it's an ND spot, so be the person that people want to have around, because anyone else could be put in that place. Be thankful that you have the day, and yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to say also, those are great points. Also, know your contracts, know how you're supposed to be paid.
Oh, that's a good one.
Super aware of what your rights are when you sign out. Don't sign out a blank page just because it's like, You're making me sign something, like, would you make me sign a contract that had nothing in it and just sign your name?
Yeah.
We'll fill it in later. That's a personal thing that I just hate, signing out blank pages. So just know how your contracts work.
Okay, that's a good one. Okay.
Really
Anyone
good.
else?
I would say grow as a person. Just grow as a human being, be awesome, because especially you spend 12, 16 hours a day with people most of the time. Be someone that you're going to sit and have a really good conversation with and become true friends with. So grow as a human being.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Because we have
Mine
each
would be,
other's
don't be
backs.
afraid to speak up. Don't
Yeah.
be afraid to speak up. Tasha?
Also, what Olivia was saying too, speaking up and asking questions, even if you're on set, even if it's other departments or you just want to, I think being your own person, I think in the beginning, it's like, don't go by Video Village and don't do this and don't bond with your actress and I think that if you're confident in your skill, and it can be a benefit later on, because a lot of times the actors are looking to you to keep them safe. The bond is with you, and a lot of the coordinators are male. So I think it's really good to have a good relationship with even other departments, and asking questions like Olivia said.
I think it's also important it's okay to say no and turn down a job if you know you can't do it, because you're not going to get called if you fail on set because you weren't able to do it. When I first started driving, I turned down jobs all the time, but I'd say I'm working on that. And then once I finished working on it, then I would get back to the coordinator later and let them know that I mastered that maneuver or whatever. But, it's okay to say no. You'll work again. Don't panic over finances or anything.
That's a good one.
Mhm.
Michelle, you have any?
Contracts, know your contracts, right?
Yeah, that's very important. Very important. I'm going to ask my panel to hang on. I'm going to stop all the live things and ask, you guys hang on. Don't get off your video feeds, okay? We want to thank you guys for coming to For Women About Women. We hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions about the panel, please email me. I have all of their contact information and social media in one link, and I could send it back to you. Email me at jwaundace@stuntpoc.com, or you could email me through website stuntpoc.com through the contact page. We thank you all for watching us, and save the date, August the 5th. The next one, August 5th. Save the date. Bye, everyone. Hold on, guys.